your healthcare providers, I realize that, and you want to help people. And your employer, the physician or the hospital or the urgent care, they want to help people too. And certainly the sick person wants to get help, but do you really want to put yourself at risk? And this is what this topic is about. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Ron Chapman, and I'm with Chapman Law Group. And one of the concerns that people have called regularly today, and I know that it's getting worse and worse, is what does a healthcare provider do when their employer wants them to either treat someone with COVID-19 or possible COVID-19, and they're not given the proper protective gear? The first thing we need to look at is what is the proper protective gear. And if you look at this particular article we're going to put up, it's the FDA article. It goes through in great detail and it analyzes that. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see recommendations. Stop right there and you'll see recommendations that you can go through at your leisure and you can read this. And then there's a CDC article that also talks about considerations for selecting protective clothing. These are your two main articles to look at and decide under your specific circumstance, what type of clothing would you need? Now that doesn't address our problem. Our problem is this: when you're asked to do something, you're asked to look at a patient, you're asked to examine a patient, what do? We put together sort of a two-step process, actually a three-step process. The first step is to analyze yourself. Are you at high risk? Do you have underlying conditions like COPD, diabetic, type 1 diabetes, hypertension, things that may put you at serious risk? And are you of an elevated age? Are you over 65 years old? Are you 70? Are you 75 years old? These things will all go into the reasonableness of what your decision is. And then the next thing we have to look at is what is the danger zone you're expected to go into? Are you treating someone who is positive for COVID-19? Are you diagnosing somebody who could be COVID-19? Are you taking a swab? Or are you doing routine care? Those considerations you'll have to look at. And then the third thing we have to look at is what does the law say? In all states, the law says basically the same thing with some variations, and that is that an employer has a duty to provide you a reasonably safe workplace. So the condition here, or the main focus, is what is reasonable. You look at your condition and you look at what you're expected to do. You look at these two articles in the executive summary that we prepared that you'll also be able to access, and you have to determine what is it that you think is reasonable. And then you'll have to go to your employer and say, do you have these things? For example, at minimum, if a patient has COVID-19 or possible COVID-19, you will need an N95 mask that fits properly. Sometimes these masks don't fit properly. You have to get one that fits properly. Sometimes you'll even need a positive airflow head shield mask. It depends on what situation you're going into. What type of protective clothing do you need? There's different types. I mean, there's level 1, 2, there's level 3, 4, and then there's surgical, non-surgical, which is at a lower level that you would need if you're just doing routine types of care. And you'll be the best judge of doing that. So using your medical expertise, if you determine that my employer does not have safe equipment for me to use, what do? My first advice is understand the plight of your employer. Understand your own plight too, that you don't want to get sick and you don't want to affect your family, and understand the condition of the patient who desperately needs some help. And then when you take all those things into consideration, seriously and reasonably look to see what is the basic reasonable protection you need. If you don't believe you have that, then put that in writing to your employer. Tell your employer what your condition is, tell your employer the danger zone you're expected to be in, and tell your employer that you need to have this type of equipment. And if your employer doesn't have it, then you have to make a choice. Will you work or will you not work? If you don't want to work in that particular danger zone, like treating somebody with COVID-19, but you're willing to work in the reception area, or you're willing to work in the back room doing some things, try to be reasonable and work this out with your employer. In the end, your employer may terminate you. If they do terminate you, and I don't believe that they will do this lightly, and they will do this only after they've taken every precaution they could possibly have, make sure that you've documented that you have told a supervisor, and I want you to keep a copy of the letter that you give them or the document you give them, who you gave it to, the time you gave it to, the day you gave it to, and make sure that on there you document that you are ready, willing, and able to work with the patient. But the condition of the patient matters, your safety matters, your health matters, and you need the reasonably basic equipment in order to protect your health. What we don't want to happen is after this is all over, that you get sick, or you get sick in a few days, since this happens rapidly, you get sick in a few days, then you have a terribly bad outcome. That's not fair to you, it's not fair to your family. Here at Chapman Law Group, we have 15 of the finest healthcare attorneys in this country, I believe, and we're here to help you. We're here to work out these problems, compliance problems, all of the problems that you have. Feel free to look us up on the website, chapmanlawgroup.com. Feel free to call us. You can reach me at 941-893-3449, or you can reach any one of our healthcare team. We're ready and here to help you. We want all of us to get through this crisis. I thank you for the work that you're doing, and we look forward to getting through this crisis, and I personally look forward to talking to you if the need arises and you want to call. Thank you and have a blessed day.